we spoke for just a moment about God doing everything for His own glory. And I'll just re-quote Edwards here. He says, "Thus we see that the great end of God's works, which is so variously expressed in Scripture, is indeed but one, and this one end is most properly and comprehensively called the glory of God." He also says, "Thus it is evident that the glory of God is the ultimate end of the work of redemption." Now, if you want another reason for God doing this, that's fine. But the truth is, there's just not another reason. Look anywhere you want. Turn over every rock. Open the door to every dark passageway. You're just not going to find another ultimate or principal reason. He did it for His own glory. And you say, "But Brother Paul, He did it because He loved us." You're exactly right. But why did He love us? Did He love us because of inherent worth? Did He love us because of virtue and merit? Again, He loved us because He is love, and He chose to manifest that love for His own glory. So ultimately, God is the reason why God did what He did. And people with right thinking never have a problem with that. They rejoice in that. They get excited. You mean there's a motive in all of this that's larger than me? That's good. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Now, but in our world today, we've got to answer a question. And the question is always this: should God do that? Is it right for God to seek His own glory? You know, that statement right there, I think the response of the Apostle Paul would be something like this: shut up. Don't say anything else. You're digging a deep hole. What do you mean, should God seek His own glory? God should do anything God does do. And He should seek His own glory. Now on page 5, the paragraph here, we're just going to read through it a bit. It is often asked, even by sincere Christians, whether or not it is right for God to act for His own glory. To answer the question, we only have to consider who God is. Now, let's just stop there for a second. To answer just about every question, the only thing we have to do is consider who God is. Answer the question about our existence. Answer the questions about circumstances surrounding our lives. Just about answer any question. It can be answered with, who is God? And this is why it is so important that you understand in your preaching. I mean, let's go to every church in America on Sunday. Of all the, I would dare say, hundreds of thousands of sermons we're going to hear, how many of them will be about the character of God? And more than just some Sunday school statement about the character of God. There won't be many. There will be methodologies taught. There will be 10 steps taught. There will be things to consider taught. But most of all these questions could be answered if we would just start teaching people who God is. Once you know that, then you don't ask questions like, why do bad things happen to good people? You start asking questions like, why does anything good happen at all? It's a demonstration of God's common grace. So that's what people desperately need. But now, let me stop here again. You say, okay, that's what I'm going to do. When I say that people need to hear about God, they at the same time do not need a dry, dead, simply theological discussion. Now, everything that we say must be theological. It must be doctrinal. It must be correct. You know how I feel about that. But Don't get up there and teach on the omniscience of God unless you have fought with this doctrine so long that it has warmed your heart and got you so excited that you don't know what you're going to do. I was teaching down in Peru a couple of months ago, and what I said to them, I said, "Men, you want your people to be on fire about God. Are you on fire? When you think thoughts about God, does it burn in your heart? Can they see the flame? Do you almost get beside yourself, have to stop and catch your breath? You want people to get excited about the Word. But do they see that fire in your life? Do you see? That's why someone can, take a sermon of John Piper and preach the sermon word for word. And it just doesn't seem like there's anything there. That's why I disagree with a lot of very strict reform ideas that has nothing to do with the preacher. I disagree with that. Because when the same words come out of an older man who has not received this stuff secondarily, but has lived on the mount and felt the fire of the truth that he's teaching, something changes. Something is transformed. That's why we must be men alone with God above everything else. You must be, as a minister, you must be a people person. I mean, you must love people. If you don't obey the second command, you're definitely not going to obey the first one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. You must, in a sense, be a person who loves people. But you must not primarily be a people person. You must primarily be a man of God. You see. Because you don't have anything to give people. You're a messenger boy. You go to God and bring what God has for people. That's the difference. And it's a great one. It's a great one. Now, we'll go on. According to the Scriptures, God is infinitely greater than all of His creation combined. Would everyone agree with that? Infinitely greater. Not just a little bit greater or a lot greater. It can't be measured greater. Therefore, it is not only right but necessary for Him to take the highest place and to make His glory the greatest reason or chief end of all that He does. It is right, because of who He is, for Him to take center stage and to work all things so that His glory, the fullness of all He is, might be made known to all, with an end that He might be glorified, esteemed, and worshipped above all. For Him to shun such preeminence would be for Him to deny that He is God. For anyone other than God to seek such preeminence would be the grossest form of idolatry. There has to be a center. Okay? There has to be. Who's it going to be? Do you know, it's just a fact. In most Christian circles, it's just a fact that if I were to preach in such a way that in my preaching, man would appear as the center of the universe, I would have very little problems out of most people who hear that message. But if I preach a message putting God at the center, and again, someone must be at the center, I would have people walking out moping or angry saying, well, what about man? Well, what about man? It's like one time preaching years ago, and I preached a sermon on the holiness of God. It was like a 3 or 4 day meeting, and I preached a sermon on the holiness of God. And afterwards, 3 men met me in the back, and they said, we have a real problem with what you preached tonight. And I said, well, okay, what is it? And they said, you preached the entire night on the holiness of God, and not once did you mention